So here we are with the left angle cross of endeavor. You got a blue heading. It's the only blue heading of all the lines. As you know, this is something that is really deeply developed from the beginning. And it says to you that something is very funny about the six-linked beings when they're born. Remember, Buddhahood, they have no depth. They're born with an empty well. It's a dry well. All you have at the bottom of the well is old salt crystals. Now, there's something more about that. If you come in and the well's already full, it's been full of the genetic sense. So you come into the world and you got a dry well. You know that what you're taking in doesn't have any fixed way or which patterns in depth. Like all six line, it carries a deep mutated quality, and the keynote itself expresses the six line potential, that is self fulfillment, the undiminished resource. What a great title for an empty well. That's a koan if there ever was one. It's beautiful. It would take a great little piece of poetry, the empty well, an undiminished resource. You just leave it there. Do it in a nice Japanese writing. It's like thinking about Aquarius and the symbol of Aquarius and this person that is standing there with this jar and there's water pouring out of the jar, but it's always pouring out of the jar. And yet, how could it always be pouring out of the jar? There's nothing going into the jar. When you get to the sixth line, like Buddhahood, you get to see something. You get to see the identification with I am not the well. It is the well. It is the source. It is an illusion. That is my well. It is the source. Now, boy, if you get to that point, are you ever awake? This is a life process. If you're lucky, because it's blue, we know the valued order center that it gives empty well, that it gives it receives and thus continue to give, a depth and potential talent that is valuable to others, the moon in detriment, a tendency to superficiality that through humorous and nurturing will lack the inspirational quality they can transform its gift into a common currency, where the depth is limited to taste and it will be superficial and affect the quality of the possible talent. The 6-2, you go through the 3-2 phases and you realize something. There's a panic inside of you because the failure in experience convinces you that you have no depth. With the 6-2 starts this process on this cross. It is endeavor. After all, there's a place to go, and there are things to do. This is why there's action as this theme underneath. The 53, the gate that starts things. The 54, that is so ambitious. Don't forget the power that is in them. This purpose is fulfilled by taking action in one way or another, and the 6-2 really surfaces in that first cycle. But then, this is the fool, and the fool on the hill. You go to the fool, and the fool says to you, I'm stupid. Why are you asking me? And the other gets very confused, but I thought you know. And then they say to them, what's the problem? And they say, well, I have the problem with this or that, or the other thing. And in the moment that they take in the depth from the other, and it mixes in with their salt, that's an image. And out of that comes kind of expression. And they go away happy. They got what they wanted. Mystically, to try to understand the six, we are not equipped. We do not have enough beings that are six lines in the profile who are living their design, who can truly talk to us about what the Chiron phase really means, what it means to be neither the observer nor the observed, what it means to be neither pessimistic nor optimistic. And here you can have a sense of it, that the depth is not within, that the depth always comes from the outside. After all, if you're looking to see what fills that well, you have to look up in the sky to the stars of the 48 gate and see the stream of neutrinos that are pouring into that well. That's where it's all coming from. Then we go to the sixth tree. Whenever we get to the sixth tree, remember that this is for common good, so that you can get see that in the left angle configuration of endeavor, that the endeavors are there for the common good. They're trying to be of service for the common good. And yet the sixth tree is always looking for the next. And we've been going through this process as we're moving through, and you can see that the 48 and the 57 sit beside each other. And this is very important because remember, these are the only two gates that look backward. But more than that, here we get to the 57 and we get to the very first individual gate in the quarter. Here we are. And for the first time, and not only the first time, do we get an individual gate. But boy, do we ever get a gate. The 6-3 is sitting there and saying they're all afraid of tomorrow. The final wisdom in the depth of 48 is to realize that everyone's afraid of tomorrow. The fear of inadequacy. It's all about that they don't think they're adequate enough. They're terrified of tomorrow. And that to be afraid of tomorrow is the most basic of all fears. It's the heart and soul of all fears. So there's a lot of fear in that. Okay. Now then we go to the 57 gate, and we'll see how that goes.